just talk to us about the AGM. I mean, AGMs is what? Looking at shareholders' interests, financial records, strategies for the future. What are you going to be doing?
Very significant AGM. We are giving an overview of progress made in the last year and where we are. We know it was a very difficult year last year with the recession and what we did as business. But what makes it more important is that it's an election year. We are electing a new president. We are electing 3 vice presidents. Okay. Significant because it comes at a time when there are debates about the relationship between government and business. So the president who is going to be elected tomorrow will play a very key role in terms of ensuring that we move forward with a very healthy, constructive engagement with government.
Now, lots of speculation, obviously, in the media as to who is the best candidate for the job of Busa president. The name of Sandile Zungu being thrown around, Futhi Mtoba being thrown around, and the sense that one has the ear of the president, whereas the other doesn't. So these issues start to predominate the attention of the press. Are they going to detract from the other issues at the AGM?
Definitely not. I think the candidates in their own right are 2 good quality candidates, and I think we have a very good choice. I think our members will have to look at what are the key priorities that Busa need to focus on, what are the issues that we need to achieve over the next coming 2 years, and then determine who of the 2 candidates is best suited to lead the organization over the next coming 2 years.
Now, this issue also is impacted on by recent public debates, even spats, some people would say, between Busa and Business Leadership SA, whereas there's a feeling that Busa, your organization, is closely aligned to the Zuma administration, and Business Leadership SA is struggling to get an audience with the president and the new government, and the feeling is that BLSA is the better representative of government because it represents the top 80 companies in South Africa.
I think that debate is really informed by views of people that are outside business and organized business in particular. Those that are within our constituencies in business know very well how we are structured. BLSA is a member of Busa. The chairman of BLSA is the immediate past chairman of Busa. The CEO of BLSA is a vice president of Busa. The members that sit at BLSA also sit at Busa in different other capacities. For instance, you find at BLSA your CEOs from the banking sector who also sit at Busa through the Banking Association. You find others from the oil and petroleum who also sit at Busa through SAPIA beside BLSA. So I think this divide is very misinformed about really what is going on. BLSA and Busa are not in competition. Busa is the premier organization that represent the interests of business across sizes and sectors in the economy.
Right, let's talk about the impact of business on government policy and government policy formation. Busa is made up of about 56 associations and federations, of which BLSA is one of them. But as I said, BLSA represents 75% of JSE capitalization. So there's real power in that block. What issues do you represent when you meet with the president?
We represent exactly the issues that affect all businesses, including BLSA. They participate in our policy inputs. They raise issues because we're the only body that represents business. For instance, at NADLEC, we go to Parliament. I haven't seen any of our, unless it's a very sector-specific matter. But BLSA, because by its nature, it's not a sector body. It's a different kind of a structure, but in terms of policy issues, they are well represented. We are not aware, they have not raised with us, for instance, that there are issues that they would like to raise with government, that they are not able to do so through Busa. And I think it's a very it doesn't come from BLSA, by the way. Let me emphasize that. They are very comfortable that they are well represented through Busa. But if they have other interests, like all our other member organizations, if they just want to have meetings with anybody else in government, our constituencies are free to do so.
What do you make of this BLSA-Busa debate? I mean, although Jerry is stressing the importance of recognizing that BLSA is a member of Busa, articles and pronouncements in the press suggest divisions within business and make it difficult for the government to coordinate its activities around business.
Yeah, I think globally there's the time to act together with government and with business, has never been more important than right now. And particularly in a South African context where we had a change of guard, albeit inside of the same ruling party. I think, and Jerry will attest to this, sometimes business doesn't get as much of their kind of word through. And particularly in a South African context, I don't know whether business has been quiet for a little while and maybe has finally got a floor with a president that will listen a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, perhaps Jerry can tell us what will unlock Pandora's box.
Let me add to that question. Unlock the Pandora's box, but more constructive engagement. Apparently, business and government would interact through working groups, and that's not happening right now. How do you interact with the government?
I think it's one of the challenges that when we get fixed to the past, without looking at what were the outcomes and the success thereof, it becomes very problematic. Some of the working groups that existed in the previous dispensation were very divisive in business. And therefore, part of the challenge, we now have a government, a president. We have met with the president 3 times last year to discuss issues that relate to the economic crisis. And therefore, we find that the president is more open to engage and more inclusive. But because we are trapped in the past in terms of the working groups, I think within business, we do need to have a dialogue and say, there were aspects of the previous working groups that worked. We need what kind of a structure that will allow something along the lines, but not exactly the same, because as I say, the historical working groups under President Mbeki, some of them were very divisive, some of them were based on racial ground and various other things. And that's why, for instance, it's a misnomer to compare BLSA and BUSA, because BUSA does not represent SMEs. And historically, you have to look at BLSA was not set up yesterday. It's been there for over 30 years. It has a history on the things that it has stood for. And there are also strong views about some of the issues that it stands for within its own members, and therefore it has its own niche, it has its own things that it does. So I think what is important at this point in time is constructive, open engagement with the president, with government. We do engage with ministers very significantly, more than ever before.
Let's move this along to issues of national and strategic importance. Energy, we know that you've represented business at the national public hearings of the National Energy Regulator in terms of the proposed tariff hikes, and you even gave statistics and said if you increase electricity costs to business will increase by about 2 billion. That's what you're going to lose in investment because people are paying electricity, and about 200,000 jobs will be shed. They didn't heed your warning. We've got those electricity hikes. How's business going to work around that now?
I think we've always had to find a balance. That's why, as Busa, we went out, we commissioned research by experts in the field who looked at what would be absorbed by the economy. We knew we need security of energy supply, and therefore the tariff is part of that. But the issue was finding the right quantum, and it was always going to be a difficult one. That's why we finally said business can absorb at least up to 25% increase. There will be a price to pay indeed. There are companies that have gone under because they can't. There are companies that have retrenched workers because of the additional cost. But in the long term, we had to swallow the bullet to a certain point.
And in terms of job creation, the latest statistics from Q1 suggest that unemployment is above 25%, so it's still rising, and this is withstanding the fact that 800,000 jobs were lost last year.
We expected that we would have a challenge. We've just come out of a recession. We've just come out of negative growth in the economy. I think the key challenge this year for all of us in business, in labor, and everybody is to say, how do we now define the new economic recovery path for South Africa, such that it is also accompanied by the right levels of job creation. That is why, for instance, the Industrial Action Plan talks about labor-intensive industries that government wants to focus on, and as business, I think we need to engage more comprehensive. But overall, we know government doesn't create jobs, and it's always a misnomer when government has to go and account in Parliament for how many jobs they've created. Government must create an environment for private investors and individuals to invest and create jobs, and we need to get that right.